I look at the definition of issues management, it's in essence, is the organized activity of identifying emerging trends, concerns, and issues likely to affect your organization in the next few years, and you have to develop a range of responses towards that. What we are essentially saying is that even before you think about crisis management, think of about pre-crisis management, which is getting the teams together, predicting the problems. You anticipate what the areas of concern might be. This leads you to minimize surprises. Very simply put, you have to hit the ground running. I've had questions come to me before where people say to me, oh, you know, when the crisis takes place, what are the resources that I should go and read about, and how do I train my people? My response to that is, when the crisis takes place, God, if you're at that point when the crisis is taking place and you're actually trying to read on something or trying to mobilize your team at that time to train them, you're prolonging your crisis, and it'll be an absolute negative reaction from the get-go, because you need to have been prepared already for this. And you might also say to me, but you know, Karen, we're not mind readers. We don't have a crystal ball. And I say, absolutely, nobody has that crystal ball. Who would have foreseen, right? Your global pandemic that affects our lives today, or an aviation disaster. But what issues management allows you to do is to minimize your surprises. You are the keepers of your brand and your company. You are the ones who know what are the issues that could take place. Case in point, if I own a massage parlor or I own a spa, the first thing that I would think of in terms of issues management is, what if I have a patient who gets an allergic reaction to my skincare? Now, that's not going to be the same for a company that's doing food and beverage, but they might be having to consider, of course, possible food poisoning. What if my suppliers are cutting off their supplies? What if prices go up? What if my supply chains get impacted? That's what we mean by issues management, and that one size doesn't fit all. And then, of course, the ability to resolve the issues, meaning you're not expected to resolve an issue that hasn't taken place, but what you are doing is preempting. When we look at issues management and then we go into crisis management, a good example and perhaps an analogy would be if you're the Titanic, okay, and we're not talking about, we're really talking about the ship that hit the iceberg and sank, right? The tragedy of the Titanic. Issues management, if you were the owners of the Titanic, or you were the team or the ship captain and everyone else on the Titanic, issues management means that you should have considered possibility, I'm going into these very cold waters, possibility of hitting an iceberg, possibility of running out of food. Do I have enough lifeboats? Can how do I get my the people on board the ship? What is the contact means? How do I communicate with my ship members should we have a situation? Crisis management is you already hit the iceberg. You hit the iceberg. That's not the time for you to decide when you're going to get your ships, how many crew are going to be contacted, all of that. You've hit your iceberg. So crisis management is more reactive. Issues management is proactive. And so when we look at crisis management and communication, the pre is essential. It's really a non-negotiable. And go back and think carefully within your own companies, are you doing enough of the pre? From the fact that maybe it's my receptionist, if she gets a call that says, hi, there may be a food poisoning taking place in your company, or you get a social media post. Have you prepared your team members internally? Is your workplace secure? Have you engaged sufficient members of the community in this whole pre-planning, pre-crisis period? Because once that phone call comes in and says, I am now at the hospital and I've just been poisoned by the food that your company made, that's crisis already.